In the gym and in the car, with our advice you could go far. We fuck things up and we make mistakes, and talk about our sexy dates. We host events and go to clubs, but most of all we're still in love. It's getting hard for this to rhyme, just as well 'cause it's bed hopping time.
Hello and welcome to the Bed Hoppers special episode. My name is Mrs. H.
And I'm Secret Stag. I'm not Mr. H.
Not Mr. H.
Absolutely not.
We don't have a Mr. H again.
We're sad to be missing Mr.
we
H.
love him and we
Just
miss
to confirm, he is here.
Maybe.
In the building.
He's here in spirit. I'm going to channel him.
I feel like, is it like a...
He'd love that, wouldn't he?
Channel him.
Yeah.
Is it like a sliver thing where there's secret cameras watching us? Because I'm fully on board with that.
So why are we here and why am I here with Secret Stag?
Well, for us here in the present, you have just sat here with the wonderful Secret Vixen and recorded
I have.
something with her.
I've done like a mad expose
about
hotwifing with Secret Vixen.
For the listeners, it's been 2 weeks or so, and they listen to Secret Vixen talk to you about whatever.
You don't even know. I'm not going to tell you.
And dear listeners, for the last hour or so, Mrs. H has been giving me just threatening looks. And
I've just literally been throwing curveballs away. Not even pokeballs.
I'm interested to hear what we're talking about. Let's go.
You are. And but the beauty is you won't even know what Secret Vixen said about you until you've heard this one too.
Why are you giving me this?
I want to go to you.
You're terrifying me.
Because I'm lubing you up ready to get all the info out of you.
So we're not going in raw then. There is some sort of lubrication.
You've got some lube. You're good.
Let's go then. Let's do this.
You're good to go. Right, we're here. We're here today with Secret Stag. And so if viewers or listeners haven't already heard the episode with Secret Vixen, I suggest you tune in first because this will tell you all the questions I asked Secret Vixen. And now I'm going to ask Secret Stag some very similar questions, but not necessarily the same ones.
I see. So you're getting things from my point of view this time. Yeah. I see.
I'm just playing the long game.
Are you? This is
like world domination is my plan.
I don't want to say this is out of character for you, Mrs. H, to have a plan.
What are you saying?
To have a plan.
Yeah, maybe. I like the psychological games.
Let's go for it. So what's the first thing you'd like to ask me, Mrs. H?
I have a bunch of questions for you. I haven't even written these down. I'm just going to go. I'm just going to go out.
Do it.
Out there. So just to give you a little bit of context, Mr. Stag.
Okay.
I did ask Vixen to give me a little bit of brief context around what your setup is. And she gave us a wonderful explanation about what hotwifing is, what the Stag and Vixen scenario is. So we don't need to really go into that anymore. Okay, so we know what that is.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've got some context. Okay. Now, I had a chat with Vixen about why you do this and kind of what her angle is and what your angle is. What I'd like to know from you,
right?
Okay, is why you do this.
That's a lovely idea. Why do we do this? If you could see the look that Mrs. H has given me here. So, not to retread old ground. Vixen and I have been doing this for five years now, 6 years. And it was always a way for us to explore another part of sexuality that gave us experiences that we couldn't achieve together, but also gave us experiences that brought us closer together. Now, that may seem strange to people when you talk about non-monogamy, particularly a more one-sided view of non-monogamy, where one person is more active than the other, and how that can bring you together. But for us, that really was the case. I mean, our dynamic of Vixen and Stag is very much a case that my wife plays, and I fully encourage her to do that.
Oh, you do?
I do. This is not a trick. I fully encourage her to do that. She calls me her hot wife PA. So on things like Fab Swingers, and Swing Hub, and even Twitter, where we've met some wonderful people, it's always that case that I enjoy seeking those men out that I feel will give her fantastic experiences, sexual experiences. That's sort of where I'm at. So much of my pleasure in my sexuality is focused on what she is experiencing. I don't quite know how that happened or when that happened, but I know if you'll read on our blog, you'll see that for 10 years before we had that conversation, so we're talking way back into the early noughties, it was something that I'd thought about and something that I talked to her about. Something that I hadn't talked to her about. I was inside me all that time. Fortunately, since she has embraced this lifestyle, and we've gone on to have these amazing experiences, meet wonderful people.
So you've said something to me in the past, which I'm going to quote here because I remember how powerful this quote was when you said it to me.
Yes.
So you and I have had a lot of chats.
We do.
We do have a lot of chats.
Sometimes even about naughty stuff.
And Vixen was actually really, really encouraging of the fact that you have a little bit of a confidant and a wing woman in me.
You are my pal,
yeah,
Mrs. H.
Before we were around, because, you know, we've not always been in your life.
Yeah,
I'm very glad we are now, but we haven't been in your life, obviously, at the beginning of your journey.
Yes.
And she did say that she's really, really pleased that now you have someone that you can bounce off sometimes and talk to. When she goes on her little solo date, she said it's not always easy to immediately message you or keep you updated as often as you would probably like.
Yes.
So she said it's actually quite nice now that you have someone else that you can sometimes just message and talk to about how you're feeling.
I absolutely agree. I think for people involved in...
It's a very solo pursuit from your perspective because you're the one left at home.
It is a one-player game. I mean, for us, and I should say this, not all stag, vixen or cuckold couples play this way, but for us, we very early got into this play dynamic where Secret Vixen will play completely solo. That's partially due to childcare, to be completely honest. But also, I do enjoy the idea of her going out alone, and not everyone enjoys that. Yeah. Some hot wife and stag couples, some cuckold couples, they always have to be together as a rule. And for me, I love being there. I love experiencing that. But I have learned, or I have taken pleasure from those times when I'm not there. But that was always a one-player game, as I said. And we were always at that time where I would be alone and I would try to fill my time with a bath or drink or just being on my own. I've met some wonderful people along the road. I've got a wonderful friend who I chat to here and there, and I've got a lovely group of gentlemen who I'm part of a group with, other cuck and cuck adjacent people who I chat to. Of course, I've got the wonderful Mrs. H, and we chat lots when
we do.
Secret Vixen is out doing her thing.
Yeah. So one of the things that you said to me way back at the beginning of this, when we first started chatting about what you do, you said to me, Mrs. H, Secret Vixen is my fantasy brought to life.
Oh, I did say
that. You did say, and I remember you saying this at the time and being really cognizant that was a really powerful statement you made. And it led me to want to ask you today, so, you know, what is your fantasy?
Oh, well, that's very powerful. So a lot of people, when they fantasize about things, they fantasize about impossible things.
Because it's no hurt, right? And it just stays in your imagination.
That's the nature of fantasy,
and you can make it as ridiculous, as far-fetched,
I mean, I haven't got
illegal as you wanted.
Well, I'm not talking about your fantasies, Mrs. H, you big freak. But the notion of a fantasy is that it exists in a realm outside of reality. So to have had fantasies when, in my formative sort of, lack of a better word, cuckolding years, I'd be watching pornography and I'd be cycle of masturbation and porn, generating these fantasies. And through my wonderful relationship with my wife, where we have met great people and we've experienced wonderful things, I am very fortunate, and I always thank my lucky stars for that. I've seen actual fantasies with my wife happen.
Yeah.
And there are not, I would probably assume there aren't many people who can say that.
Right.
And I feel very, very, very fortunate for that. Going forward, though, the thing with that is that once you experience one of those fantasies happen, it's the sort of where's next? What next?
Set yourself a precedent.
Well, yeah. And, you know, you and I exist in a world where we've had wonderful experiences, and the listeners out there, you know, who want to make these things, want to make their fantasies reality. You do sort of get into a...
how can you push it further?
Yeah, precisely. What next? Because when you're lucky enough to have been with wonderful people, wonderful places, what comes next? For me, I think I would like to see with more than one man. I think that was something that I think she would enjoy. I really feel like I think that's something she would enjoy.
Is it something she would enjoy or you would enjoy?
I would enjoy that for sure.
So is this driven by what you think she would like or what you would like
difficult.
to see?
Secret Vixen is notoriously difficult to sort of draw out her fantasies. She's always said she...
I don't know, I managed it.
Oh, did you? By this point I would have listened, so
Now
I'll
I'm
have
goading
known you little goader. I don't know, for all the listeners out there who... It is a balance between balancing what you want out of a sexual encounter, what your partner wants.
Yeah.
And you do have to be cognizant of that relationship. And it takes time. It takes honesty. I think my wife and I have had that honest chats with each other of what we both want. And although sometimes she finds it hard to say what she wants, I think I've got a handle on where she's going and what she would like and previous experiences that I think she's enjoyed. So yeah, I mean, I'm not talking like 15 guys, Mrs. H. I'm not talking
really?
Yeah, stop it. Stop it. I'm talking 2 guys, 3 guys.
That's a threesome. That's
3 guys.
That's not a gangbang.
4 guys.
Right, keep going.
5 guys? 5 guys has always been the joke with Secret Vixen. That would be the thing. But Secret Vixen would like the 5 guys to be people she knows and people she's had experience with.
Absolutely.
So that's something I'm aware of as well. But I think seeing her, the center of attention, that's so powerful for me. Seeing her really be part of that self-love for her, embracing that self-want and that lust for her, for what she desires, is very powerful for me. And although my fantasy is based on that as well, something I want. I don't know what came first, the desire to see her that way or feeling that her desire was heading that way. I don't know.
So interesting. So at the point we're recording this, you haven't heard
Go on.
my conversation with Vixen.
I have not. So do I need a little recap?
Well, what I will say is I asked Vixen, if I was talking to your husband now, what do you think he would say his biggest fantasy was for you?
Oh, Lord. Well, I have to say what I think it was. She would probably have said it was with multiple men.
She absolutely did say that. She said, is this going to be some scoring system where it's like Mr. and Mrs.?
Did she refer to the type of gentleman? Did she talk about them?
She said you'd need to know them.
Yeah, she would need to know them.
Yeah.
And also I think they would have to be sort of experienced in the lifestyle of dealing with wives and perhaps for me, I like men who are with her to be physically powerful.
This.
Yes, so, I thought she would.
So hold your horses there because you're jumping the gun and I'm going to unpick this whole thing.
This is what my wife says as well. She says I haven't moved too fast as well.
You are literally galloping right ahead there. So you cool your jets out a second. Let's get back to this gangbang. Right.
Stop the nonsense. Let's get back to the gangbang.
I know how your mind works. Let's get back to the gangbang. Focus on that. All right. Look into my eyes, not around my eyes. Look into my eyes. Okay.
Go on, I'm ready.
Gangbang. Right. We talked about this and she did agree that actually your biggest driver in all this is you seeing her lose herself in desire. Okay, like giving into lust or whatever.
I agree.
And you've said the same to me on multiple occasions. I've sat and observed with you. We've sat back and watched Vixen with my own husband. And
she enjoys her own husband. She does enjoy your husband. This is true.
Little dialogues between us about what's happening, and I like to feed those little fantasies in your head when that's happening. And you have said to me in the past, what gets you every time is watching her give in to letting lust overtake her.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
I agree.
She said the same. But she knows that what drives you. And actually, it seems like you're both pretty much on the same page with that.
Hooray.
Good.
That's good news because,
So since you've gone like stampeding into the sex part of things, we're going to talk about the sex.
Rushing into things. Go ahead.
Talk about the sex. All right. So I did talk to Vixen a lot about the sex.
Really?
Yeah, I really did.
She talked about sex.
She really did. Absolutely, she did.
Oh, the listeners don't realise it. Secret Vixen, for somebody who writes about sex and takes sexy pictures.
It's very, very shy.
She does not talk about the sex.
I know. But it turns out she can.
She likes the sex a little bit.
It turns out she does like the sex.
There you go. But I think, again, you've got to understand that I have lived with my wife now very happily 20 years, and having seen her develop this side of herself where she's free to express these wants and desires is so wonderful, so liberating for her. And being part of this lifestyle, it's opened the door, that side of her. I love it. Oh, I'm very interested to hear, Mrs. H, what she said.
Well, I'm not going to tell you because you can listen yourself. But I'm going to ask you some questions as well about the sex.
Obviously.
All right. So,
did she say I have a small willy?
We did talk about penises.
She's the worst.
I don't think you have anything to worry about.
Oh, you're a good friend.
No, I didn't say that. She did.
Oh, God. Go ahead.
So, the sex. I wanted to know from her perspective, what was different between the sex between you and her in obviously a marriage.
Yep, of course.
Partnership. And what differed with the sex that she has with her bulls.
Ooh, that's
I know.
interesting.
I know.
And this has changed over time.
Yes.
So initially, it was just newness. It was the difference was there was a difference. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
The difference was that it was a different person, and we met wonderful people in those first few years. If they're listening, hi, those gentlemen out there, you are amazing. And they provided my wife with wonderful new experiences. She went to their homes, had sleepovers with them. And if there are any listeners to the blog, she had wonderful experiences at offices and all these wonderful and crazy things. But as time goes on, though, we look for more than just the difference being a different person. And just look inwardly. I know my physical limitations as a lover. I think it's sometimes important to look inwardly, not to criticize yourself for no reason, but to accept that, there are some footballers, to use an analogy, some footballers who are Sunday League, and there are some footballers who are League Two, and there are some footballers who are Premier League. And for my wife, what I desire is for her to have those incredible experiences with men who I look at and think, oh my gosh, there's no way I could replicate this kind of experience for her. I couldn't. Not because I don't want her to have this experience, but because this is beyond it just being with someone new.
But I find this so fascinating, this altruism, this kind of, I want my wife to have everything possible, but
I love it.
And I know I'm cognizant that I cannot give her some of this. And I find that really interesting.
Do you mean you can't give her some of this because Mrs. H, I'm going to be honest with you, you can give her some of this.
So I find it really interesting that by your own admission, you can't give her some of these things because you're just not physically the same as some of the individuals she plays with. Okay. So rather than you kind of retreating into a jealousy, envy kind of scenario, it actually drives you further and pushes you to want her to experience the things that
my God,
you're not going to
so
give her.
much so. I mean, I'm trying to think how much I can get away with telling you here about what's happened to her in her encounters with her lovers. She's been with people who have given her orgasms over again and done positions with her and been with her for hours and hours. And
that doesn't make you envious
or
jealous?
There is a jealousy aspect. I think people who are in sort of a stag or a sort of a cuckold or cuck adjacent sort of frame of mind will say that jealousy element is always part of it because you're jealous you can't provide that. But it doesn't stop me from wanting her to experience that. And I just adore it. I love knowing that she's had these experiences. Like she had I'm going to get in trouble now, Mrs. H. She had an experience recently with a man where she squirted for the first time.
She told me about this.
No, she didn't.
She did.
Oh my God.
Sorry.
She's the worst. Did she actually say that?
Talked about it.
Did she? But it happened. And again, it was one of these things that in our sexual encounters of 18 years or whatever, it's never happened. And it's never something that we sought to happen. One night with this person, and it's happened.
Right.
And you
so
think,
does that not make
oh my God.
Does that not make you guarded or worried?
Makes me want more, Mrs. H.
So it doesn't make you think, my God, this woman might actually see that I'm inadequate and run off with someone.
Okay, so this actually is an important fact.
It is.
And the idea of inadequacy, you have to manage it well. Because there is a difference between recognizing sort of sexual levels and sort of abilities and emotional connections. So my wife and I have an emotional connection. We're in love and we love each other dearly and we want to experience this together. I always used to say, you and I against the world, we're a team. But there can be a team where one person is doing one side of things, one person is doing another side of things. And because she is experiencing certain things with other men, it doesn't mean, well, for us, that compromises the emotional side for a lot of people, this is really difficult to separate massively. And for me, those people that have read our blog or maybe listened to us in an earlier podcast, I used to say that, oh gosh, I would hate it if I did something with someone else that she hadn't done with me. And as we go on, I feel less worried about that because the pleasure I take from her experiencing things with other men that perhaps we haven't done before is really powerful. If I may, there was an experience that you and I shared in Amsterdam where Mr. H and Secret Vixen experienced a first together where we yes, you know the one I'm talking about. And that was,
I want to call it the Hunger Games.
The Hunger Games, you know the one I'm talking about. And that was a new thing. And
Hunger Games is not new to me.
Seeing her embrace that at that moment was really powerful because, again, it's something we've never done. And I love it. I love seeing her grasp those moments and show that side of herself. I'm probably not expressing this eloquently enough.
Yeah,
it's a complex.
I think you might
way
be
to think.
Possibly in a minority of individuals
that
can allow these thoughts to kind of run sort of concurrent through your mind, parallel to your existing very intimate relationship, and not allow them to derail you, perhaps.
That's
because
fair.
You could let them.
Oh,
they
so
could
easily.
be very intrusive, and it could be very unsettling, I think, and have the capacity to derail you and make you feel inadequate in your own relationship. I think if you weren't very secure in your relationship with Vixen.
I think that's a good place to say that there are worries. Even now, even with our level of experience, there is still those moments. And not even when she's off with super experienced men or things like that. When we're together and alone and we have a moment together and perhaps she does not refuses to do something, but chooses to not do something together. And in your mind, you think, oh gosh, I've seen her do this before with other men.
Yeah.
And you could let that eat you away. But it is that understanding that that's part of our power dynamic. And she does those things because our power dynamic is changing. And she knows I enjoy certain elements of holding this power over me. And I think we're entering a different part of the conversation now.
We are. And the power play is definitely something I want to explore.
Did you plan this as well? You evil genius. Okay, go on.
$1 million. So before we move on to the power play dynamic, I think I just want to touch on the sex slightly once again.
I have heard of sex. Go on.
And we talked a little bit about how we talked about the rituals that sit behind kind of the hot wife dates that she has.
They are rituals involved.
And then I asked her, are there things that she's done sexually that have surprised her?
I would imagine yes.
Yes. And we did talk about that. And then we talked a little bit about how she's deemed as a size queen. Primarily because you have put her on that
I was
pedestal.
about to say, I bet she blamed me fully for this.
100%.
100%, of course she did.
So my question to you then, Stag, is do you pick types? Do you pick body, physique, whatever it is that you know you want to see your wife with? There must be something that kind of drives that. And is it because it's something that you will never be, or is it because it's what you want to see, or is it because you think that's what she would like?
This is quite multifaceted, isn't it?
It is.
So let's talk about the size thing, if I may, first.
Yes.
So despite what you may believe from Secret Vixen's blogs or things, I don't think I'm that small down there. I'm certainly not large down there.
No, did I say that she said you were small?
You're a good friend. But part of this dynamic is understanding that there are some people out there who are well endowed down there and are also able to use what they have to great effect. And we were very fortunate that the first person Vixen was ever with was large. Sort of 9.5 inches, very
Good
large.
Lord.
Yeah. And she, to be completely frank, really enjoyed that experience. So we've been with multiple men since then, and they've all been wonderful human beings. Some have been larger, some have been smaller.
Right.
Now, from my point of view, I get more of a sexual gratification when I see Vixen with someone who surpasses what I can provide her with.
Interesting.
Yeah, that drives me.
Really?
Because I
find that interesting.
So when it's a okay, I've been very fortunate to be in a swinging relationship with my wife before, and that's wonderful because you experience lots of the mutual camaraderie and enjoyment of swinging together. When you're in a hot wife scenario and you are the husband, the stag, the cuckold, and you sit on the outside as the pure observer, why would I want then, if I'm enjoying that situation where my enjoyment comes from observing, why would I want her be with someone I deem less than me?
Because it's
less than what I can provide.
Because it's no threat.
Perhaps. But then I want her to have exceptional experiences with men who are well endowed. I'm going to be completely frank about it, and muscular and tall, things that I am not. And I enjoy seeing her in those positions. That sounds rude. I enjoy seeing her in those encounters. I just love watching her embrace these men who perhaps as a wife in her late 30s, perhaps she felt she could never be with men like this,
Okay.
Here he is, I found one for you. It's that kind of situation. And I love facilitating that, so meeting people online and chatting to them and getting to know them, checking that they are the type of person we're looking for, and seeing her realize that, for lack of a better way of putting it, she's worthy. She's worthy of these men. These men aren't the kind of Hollywood movie stars or porn stars that you see with super glamorous women who are there. She's worthy of that experience. She's my absolute goddess. She's my queen, and I want to see her with men who I feel are worthy of experiencing being with her, because I think she's fantastic, wonderful, and I want her to have that. Coming to the size queen thing, I'm probably quite bad. I do, but she's just as bad, Mrs. H, because now,
Really?
yes, she is, because I've shown her people recently, and she's like seen pictures of them and said, they're pretty average. Like, they are not average. They are not average, Secret Vixen. Your brain is now broken.
You have done that.
Maybe. I've waffled on. I hope that answered your question.
I
think it did.
It did. In my head, I've got this vision of like a cat coming up to its owner and it's like dropping a squirrel on its chest and going,
Meow, I've brought you
look what I found.
Look, I've brought
You're worthy.
I've brought you a dead rat. Have it. But they're bringing dead antelope. Have it. No, absolutely not. That possibly wasn't as eloquent as I could put it, but it's the idea
it made
that,
perfect sense.
you know what I mean?
I'm trying to put myself in that position because this is so far away from where we are, like myself and Mr. H. Now, I get that we do something very, very different to you. We do not play in this way, and that's fine. We operate on a purely kind of play dynamic where we are both equally involved, and it's like a very much a non-monogamous sort of adventure where there's not one of us is favoured in any way. So it's very, very different, and arguably you probably can't really compare the two, but they sit in the same world.
Yeah, of course they do.
Unorthodox relationships.
We are you're particularly unorthodox.
What are you trying to say? I'm very unorthodox.
We all exist in this world where we have opened our relationship up.
Yeah.
But you actually said something there, if I may jump on, and you said that you have a very equal relationship. And the idea that if this is happening to you, then this has to happen to me.
We want
it to be
no
equal.
one's left out. Yes.
But where I approach things is not finding equality, finding equity. So,
oh gosh, how psychological.
Yeah. So I don't need to have what she has to be completely fulfilled. I still need to be fulfilled. So we need to find a situation where it's equitable. She is getting what she wants, and through that, I'm getting what I want. And hopefully through that, she is seeing what I am getting, and she is happy. I am seeing what she is getting, and I am happy.
So it works for you. I get that.
Absolutely. And I think people who are in that hot wife space, they see that I've met wonderful people in my life, but I don't think I'd be happy going out and having sex with 6 women or something in one time. Not only because I don't think I'd be able to cope, I'd probably just die. Like, oh my God. But because it wouldn't provide me with the same experience, and it wouldn't provide my wife with the same experience.
I can guarantee you won't provide your wife with the same experience.
It definitely would not.
I don't think she'd like to see you have sex with 6 women.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Even if she was having sex with 6 men.
No.
I actually don't think she would want to see that.
She's not. She's a good person. It is that idea, we part of the acceptance, and it has been an acceptance because it goes against so much of what you you base a relationship on.
Right, yeah. And
right?
You're drip fed these
Yeah.
orthodox norms that you're supposed to do things this way and you're supposed to have a relationship of a certain way.
Of course, it's equal because we should share things. And so much of our life is. Respect is equal and love is equal. And for, lack of anything, financial things are equal and decision making is equal. But things, if you're so inclined, can be enjoyable and can be almost astronomical in their levels of wildness. If you have this idea of equity instead of equality, I want what I want. That's going to give you what you want. And that could be Secret Vixen talking, me talking. That could be her saying, I want to fuck 4 or 5 men. And you're going to watch and I'm going to love it. And you're going to love it. And it could be me saying, I'm going to find 5 guys for you to fuck and I'm going to love it. And you're going to love it. It's that idea, it's not,
I get that. Yeah.
We're not bad people, I promise.
So I think this moves nicely into the power play.
Go on.
So you and I have talked about power play in the past.
We have.
And actually we talked about it in a couple of different ways. We talked about it before I had the opportunity to experience a kind of glimpse into your world of my own.
Yes, this was very exciting for me.
Which was very exciting for you. But before that happened, I only had your version of reality as to how this plays out. And, as I said to Vixen earlier, we have been fortunate enough to have you in our lives now for a number of years. And when we first met you...
You hated us.
No. I could never hate you. I keep trying. No,
it's difficult.
Just too
we just
nice,
keep coming back like a bad smell.
So we're fortunate enough to have met you a number of years ago now. And when we met you, we were kind of on the fringes of the pandemic. And so things were very different. And then as we came out of the pandemic and we're still fortunate enough to be friends with you, we have then now seen your entire hotwifing, and I'm going to call it a cycle, for want of a better phrase, from beginning to end. Because we saw you develop an experience with one of Vixen's balls. We saw it from its inception all the way through to the meeting part, which we partly facilitated.
Yeah, we talk about the wonderful Ashley Del Toro here.
Ashley Del Toro.
He's a good person. You're listening, Ashley. You're a good man.
All the way through to the kind of night of / day after it all happened, and then the aftermath of that and the aftercare that was involved in all of that. So I kind of saw the whole loop. And, I think we may have podcast at a time about our view of that and how...
Do you think we're dirty hotwifers?
No, I really don't. But I think what struck me at the time, and I'll say it again, is that your relationship was, even then, it was palpable how committed you both were to each other. And it was really sometimes quite hard to see how intimate and how close the connection was that Vixen had with her bull. And at the same time...
How I was pushed to the side?
How it seemingly, to a casual observer, it would seem that you were kind of... Yeah, you were...
Well, the red flag's going off. You're like, this is a red flag.
It felt like a red flag because I kept thinking, they're walking around holding hands and they're the ones coupled up on a sofa together. And how does he feel? And I couldn't help but want to reach out and make sure you were okay. But at the same time, it was very, very apparent to me that this is what you wanted. And you were the one with the power, which is where I'm moving to with the power play, because you were the one kind of calling the shots, and the power sits very firmly with you, because if you didn't want it to happen, it wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
And you were asking for this to happen.
I wanted this to happen, yeah.
A specific scenario that you then curated with Vixen and the bull to some extent. And you kind of played this out safely within the confines of your relationship. So moving to this power question, and I asked Vixen how she actually explained very eloquently that the power does indeed sit quite firmly with you. Not that she is kind of told what to do or doing something that she doesn't want to do, but it's oddly, people think that all the power sits with the woman because she's the one going out like fucking around and having all the fun, and you're the one at home going, I'm here with my sad drink, having my bath. But actually, no, you're the one sitting there going, I have orchestrated this because I want this.
Agreed.
Now I'm experiencing what I wanted to happen.
So this umbrella of hotwifing and cuckolding, because we have to be inclusive of where things are, it is a funny power dynamic.
Yeah.
It ranges from the man who would have sex with other women all the time and enjoy seeing his wife having sex, calling himself a snag, to right down to this sort of sissified cuck, are always in chastity, fully serving in a sub-relationship with their wife. And it's an umbrella of power. And for us, where we are right now, we share decision-making in terms of people and places and times and dates. So we wouldn't probably class ourselves as a cuckold dynamic, but there are times when we're with men where the power dynamic in that moment is really imbalanced and encouraged by me and by. So times where she would be with men and she would fully ignore me or tease me or be in a situation where she is reveling in the fact that I am unable to provide what she's receiving at that very moment. I'm there, or if she's sending a video or something. But I want that. I enjoy that and I encourage it. And it is absolutely not for everyone. It's absolutely not for everyone. But it is for us. And there's a lot of people out there who, I think I've said this before on the show, this was a real damaging thing for me. Years and years of trying to work this out. And fortunately, we found people like yourselves and the community on X/Twitter. And we found people who spread the good word of this idea, hotwifing is love, cuckolding is love. And this idea that you're providing your partner with what they need to experience sexual fulfillment, and you are experiencing sexual fulfillment. That is good. That is good, and that is beneficial for you. I've watched my wife, and obviously we came back that night where she was with Ashley Del Toro. She spent the night with him. Came back here to Casa Hopper, and correct me if I'm wrong, I was so excited for her. I was so excited.
Yeah, you were.
But you were.
I was so worried.
She was there. She was there with him.
She was sleeping overnight with
him.
Another man.
Yeah.
And I was like, are you okay?
Trust me,
Do you want this?
She was fully asleep by this time. She was gone.
But I couldn't wrap my head around this notion that actually what you wanted most in the world was to, reconnect with your wife, but you were allowing her another step in this kind of dynamic where you allowed her to share a bed with another man and you wouldn't see her until the following day. So my overwhelming concern was, are you okay? I was
okay.
Broken?
No, I'm not broken. I mean, the idea allowing her to do it is a mutual thing that we both wanted. She knew I wanted it. She would have stopped it if I'd wanted it. I would have stopped it if she didn't want it. And it was a beautiful thing. I wanted her to have. Also, she couldn't come home anyway. She was too tired. She was busy. They'd had a lovely night together. And for them, the ideal end to that night, in my eyes, would be for her to close her eyes and sleep.
Right.
And in the morning, wake. And they had sex again in the morning. And we met for brunch. Do you remember we went for breakfast the next morning? And they came in holding hands and all these business. And I could see it on your face, Mrs. H. So shocked and appalled. But I was shocked, not that shocked.
No.
Because I enjoy that. And again, it is that power play at work. And my wife and I will probably be honest and say that as our time has gone on, we're enjoying that power play more and more. The idea of her having more and more power and in those moments, me having less power is something we enjoy. And it takes a lot to admit that, I think, because, you're talking for the person who, my wife won't take telephone calls if I'm there because she'll want me to take. I don't want to talk to them, take the call. But in those moments, she's so powerful and I love seeing her so powerful. And I love being in a submissive role to her in those times. And as an extension, I love seeing her be submissive to the men she's with because she's not submissive with me. We have quite an equitable sexual relationship. If we're on a Tuesday night and we're just having our old time together, we make love together and it's...
You only do Tuesdays.
Only Tuesdays. Because it's Wednesday and that's the night we usually make love. No. But in those times, I love that change in her and seeing that in her. I hope that answers your question.
It did. Very, very much so.
Maybe. I might just waffled for the last 20 minutes.
No, not at all. So we don't have a lot of time left. So I'm going to ask you maybe one more question. And then,
please.
And then if you have any questions for me.
I want to ask you some questions, definitely.
Oh my God. Right, okay. So my last question. What goes through your head when your wife goes out to meet another man? Not the whole night. We haven't got time for that. But generally speaking,
it's all about what is she doing? What are they saying? What are they talking about? And usually it's always mundane stuff. She always comes back and says, we talked about his job and his friends and weekend stuff. But in my mind, I think I put it in one of my chapters I wrote once in our podcast that she sent me a picture of her and him having a drink, like just a picture of them posing with their drinks. And that to me at that point was more powerful than the most explicit pornography than you could find, because it played into the idea that she's doing this, you're not there. She's grasping this moment for herself and embracing this role as a vixen wife. And it's going to lead somewhere later on when pictures come through and videos come through and doing sexual things. You're really seeing these. Those seeds were already planted before. In my mind, I'm always imagining she doing, what's he thinking? What are people who are watching them thinking? That's always quite powerful for me as well. I quite enjoy people looking at her and thinking that she's out someone else. It's all part of the experience for me. And we know we're not hurting anyone.
No.
We're very much in love, love our family. We have very good friends, work hard at our jobs. This is a part of ourselves that we both enjoy. When she's out, I think of that moment, that physical connection between them. And I've been out with her before where we've been together as a three and she's missing and I've been there. It's very clear for people watching exactly what's happening. And I am at the bottom of that pyramid of three of us. It doesn't hurt me because I know that this is what
back to that
my sexual growth. This is not equal, it's equitable.
So do you remember on one of Vixen's dates, I think this might be going back to the summer.
Go on.
And you sometimes send me a message when
I
she's
sometimes
out and about,
do.
because I
need a friend,
you need a
Mrs.
friend,
H.
right? Okay. As I said, very, very insular kind of existence otherwise, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And as much as you're very good with your own thoughts and
some people want that, but it's nice to have that. I very much appreciate that every time, Mrs. H. Thank you.
And I remember one time you sent me a message which was basically a screenshot of Vixen's live location.
Oh, yes. That makes me look like a stalker badly. Do you remember?
No, this is very interesting. And I'll tell you for why. So it was a screenshot of her live location. And I guess she shares that with you for a number of reasons. For safety, granted.
Of course.
All right, absolutely very sensible. But secondly, I think you and her both know that this actually adds to your excitement.
Yes.
Because you sent me this picture and said, this is more exciting than any porn I could see right now, because I know she's on the move.
Yeah.
I know she has left destination A. She is going somewhere. It's not back home.
Nope.
She is going to the next destination.
Exactly.
And in your mind, you literally amplify this whole, it's happening.
Yeah.
This is happening.
I know exactly the time you're talking about.
I'm now validated in my excitement because I know what I'm hoping is happening is now happening.
It's that idea that, because you can guess and you can talk about, is this what you want? Is this what you want? I think this is what you want. But
until she makes the decision to go and do it on her own free will.
So when you see her little face on the map leave the bar and it's suddenly on the road in a cab and the cab is moving towards the hotel that he's booked for her.
It's the affirmation.
You know she's choosing, this is what she wants. And I don't need to go on Pornhub to watch something because I know that I'm feeding off the excitement that my wife, I'm vicariously feeding off that excitement for her. I know she's excited. I know what's coming. I know the next step is that they're going to go to a room.
Yeah.
And they're going to touch each other and they're going to take each other's clothes off. Send me pictures. They're going to return to me about it and we're going to be together. And it's going to be the completion of that cycle. And it is, I don't want it to sound sort of too over the top, but it is more powerful than that moment of pornography. I had 10 years of watching hotwifing and cuckold pornography. I've watched it all. And now I'm lucky enough to be able to enjoy those things. And I think if you have honest conversations with your partner and you're looking for the same thing, you can achieve that. Whether it's hotwifing, cuckolding, swinging, something else, BDSM, other dynamics. If you're honest with each other and you're fortunate enough that your fantasies align, and we're fortunate that our fantasies align, I appreciate it.
So before we finish, do you have any questions for me? Oh my goodness.
Always.
Always.
Now, we've often talked about you having sort of your own situation, your own date. Now, of course, I'm not talking about wife encounter. No. That's not something I know you would appreciate. But I think, do you understand where Vixen's coming from? Would you appreciate her excitement to a hot wife date to a single guy or a single girl even? That's something that you get. Because I often worry that people don't
get it.
Don't get it. Are we crazy? Are we crazy, Mrs. H?
No. And Vixen and I did talk a little bit about what some of the things, what were the surprises the surprise great things that she found from
Interesting.
This. And one of the things that she talked about was the fact that there is an anticipation and a kind of, we talked about the adrenaline rush of meeting and kissing someone new for the first time. And
absolutely.
How that's really quite a powerful emotive driver behind a lot of what we do. And
absolutely.
I think I could probably speak for Mr. H with this because we've talked before about how that adrenaline rush kicks in.
Yeah.
And you don't get to have first kisses anymore when you're in a monogamous relationship because you've had your first kiss and can't have any more.
No.
So lucky us, we get to have them. Sometimes multiple times.
I absolutely agree with this.
So this is the thing that probably appeals the most in what we do. And certainly even if we were to play in a different sort of space, I think this is probably what would be the main appeal. And it would probably be more appealing than sex itself.
I think this brings us right back to the beginning of the episode where you asked me those first initial encounters and the newness of something.
Yeah.
And monogamy is so much about grasping that and the unknown. Mm. And we're very fortunate that you, I, Mr. H and Secret Vixen have formed a wonderful relationship now where maybe we don't have the newness anymore. We're experiencing new adventures together, but we love those times when he's experiencing something new and she's going out something new and you're looking for something new. I think if people are listening outside, at home, that newness, the first kiss, the first touch, the first date, that's really exciting. I appreciate that you like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, Secret Vixen and Mr. H have gone out on a date, those cheeky fuckers.
I know. We made them do it.
Maybe, probably. Yeah, I think you and Secret Vixen is quite a date I'd quite enjoy. I'd quite like that.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. Oh,
you
yes.
You do know we're not just going to have a pillow fight, right?
Oh, boo earns. That's the bit I like the best. You are her bisexual gateway drug, Mrs. H.
Yeah, so you say. Interesting.
I'm trying to think what else to ask you, Mrs. H. I'm not sure.
I mean, you don't have to ask me anything. It's fine.
The thing is, but we always talk about things and I love you dearly and we have such a wonderful, close relationship. But I think understanding that there is a fundamental difference in our non-monogamy dynamics.
Yeah.
We sort of, four of us have entered into sort of a poly situation where we
a little
bit maybe, where we have a wonderful relationship between us. There are things that you and Mr. H do which are just wonderful and so crazy and exciting, and I love it. There are things that Secret Vixen and I do that are crazy and we love too, and I hope that you don't mind us doing those things.
We can't necessarily all share the same things at the same time because sometimes those worlds do need to be separate a little bit because we probably just don't have the same vibe. But,
I agree.
But there's lots of things we do together.
Yeah, absolutely. So when is this? This is now, this episode, it's going out in...
Who knows?
A few weeks' time.
Maybe.
But I just hope everyone out there loving each other and looking after each other, enjoying listening to Bed Hoppers podcast. Don't forget there's some events coming up, I believe, Mrs. H.
Oh my goodness.
Depending on when this comes out.
Absolutely. I mean, this might come out way after the events.
Maybe.
In which case, maybe there's another event.
There's another event?
Maybe. Who knows?
Exactly. The black and white party's coming up.
That's in March.
We're going to be there.
I reckon this will be out by March.
Maybe.
Let's hope so.
Secret Vixen's going to be at the black and white party.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're already lining the men up for it, right?
Oh, absolutely. You know me. And anyone who's out there, just send me a message. We'll sort something out for old Secret Vixen.
So where can people in the world find you, Mr. Stag?
Of course, you can find us on X, and Twitter, at secret_stag and at secret_vixen1, and on our podcast, which we are updating regularly this year.
Podcast?
Thank you. Podcast? Did I say
You
podcast?
said
At
podcast.
our blog. I do apologise. It's because I'm so excited about this podcast. At our blog, secretvixen.blog. And I'm currently working on the next chapter now, which is actually very similar to what we've been talking about.
All right, then. So you do some writing for this blog, don't you?
I do some writing for the blog. At least I'm hoping to. Right. We should say goodbye to listeners now. We shall. So, Mrs. H, do you want to do your thing?
Well, thank you for hopping into our bed.